All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we begin the show, here's a new segment that we like to call Checking In with the Journalists.
Checking in with the journalists, listening to the latest news. If I didn't know it would be a good place, so I'm checking in with the journalists. Checking in with the journalists.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are, as promised, with the Denton-Record Chronicles. Brett, Vito, how are you doing? How was your flight to Charlotte? Is all good, I trust?
Yeah, it was a good flight to Charlotte. I got here to my hotel and they canceled my reservation because of hotel renovation. So now I'm going to be looking for a hotel here in Charlotte. So that's always fun. But other than that, it was a pretty good trip so far.
That's a little bit of that Seinfeld, right? Like, I don't think you know how reservations work. They got it.
Yeah,
All right.
that happens sometimes. You travel on a shoestring budget like we do, trying to go as cheap as you can, and inevitably you run into a few of these problems here and there. It's just kind of part of the deal.
Well, hopefully they find some kind of accommodation for you. I hate for you to just kind of, I don't know, sleep outside the stadium or something like that. That'd be silly.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll go find somewhere.
all right. So yesterday was the unofficial start of basketball season. It was a nightmare on Elm Street. What were your impressions from that little shindig yesterday?
Well, it's always a really well-run event by North Texas. They just put on a great show. They put the court out there. They have the big board up there with the video, and they bring they do a great job introducing the teams. The city gets involved. Brings them in on the fire truck. And a lot of people come out just to kind of experience the environment and kind of see what's going on for the next year. And I just think it's a cool deal that North Texas has done. A lot of other schools across the country do those similar type of events, kickoff events, and it seems to have, been something that they found some success with. And it was another neat event last night.
Was there what was the crowd like? Was it comparable to last year? How about the enthusiasm also?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty similar every year. You get the same type of crowd out there. It's always kind of hard to tell because it's a little dark, and then it's kind of hard to gauge exactly how many people pile in at the end once North Texas gets going. But it was a good turnout, and there's a lot of enthusiasm there. And I think that's what they're really looking for is just to build some enthusiasm for the season, bring some people out, and just kind of transition into basketball season or let people, because this is a football state and a football program
Hmm.
to a large degree. I think it's a good idea for them just to have one of those, hey, are you paying attention events? Basketball's coming up. I think that's probably a pretty smart idea on their part.
Well, speaking of football, it's a big game in that it matters on the standings. It's a conference game, all the other stuff. But Charlotte's not very good. What are your impressions of the team? You talked with Eric Morris this week. His media availability on Tuesday. Does it seem like they're taking it any differently than they would be, otherwise if it was a better team, that kind of thing?
Well, I think to their credit that they have been pretty good at maintaining focus here. Morris pointed out that they have won their two games on the road in overtime, so they haven't played as well on the road at times. Army got back into it late. They went to overtime with a Western Michigan team that I think is better than what a lot of people think. And, so there's always that he can always point to that, hey, we haven't exactly rolled in all of our road games. And the question will be, just how well do they handle the short week and flying all the way across the country to play on a Friday night. And I think the thing that works in North Texas's favor is that Charlotte really has struggled throughout the year. This team's not very good if you look at it on paper. And I think that plays well to North Texas. It's not like you're flying across the country on a short week to play Memphis or to play, like they've already played South Florida. But like if you were going to play South Florida on a short week, I think that'd be a little bit more of a concern. It's already a concern, but I think this is a game that UNT should be able to handle fairly easily.
Yeah, I believe I saw that in your kind of preview of the game. Anything else that we should know about this game? What's the weather going to be like? Is it going to be in our favor? I guess North Texas' favor, I suppose.
Well, I don't know. Just the thing that comes to mind is it's just that Charlotte has struggled so much offensively. They're one of the least productive offensive teams in the conference. and with the way North Texas is playing defensively, you think that they would be able to contain them and then, make enough plays offensively like they have all year, just with the myriad of skill position guys that they have to be able to pull this game out without a whole heck of a lot of trouble. And and then you just have to be consistent down the stretch here, because I think a lot of the tough games North Texas has had to play this year are all in the rearview mirror.
Mm-hmm.
The big one coming up is the one against Navy, but you don't want to slip up against a Temple or an option team in Rice or something like that. I think it's just going to be a week-to-week thing where North Texas is just going to have to maintain focus and then really hone in on that Navy game. That's going to be the big one down the rest of the way. And then you got to see what else happens across the league, because I think the goal here, obviously, for North Texas is to figure out a way to get into that conference championship game. And there's a few teams that are unbeaten out there left. And if you're scoreboard watching, the one to watch is that South Florida-Memphis game. Because, South Florida is unbeaten. They've got the win over North Texas. North Texas doesn't play Memphis this year. So, potentially that's going to be a big bellwether game in terms of how this league plays out. If South Florida gets past that game, you look at their schedule. I haven't looked real closely at it, but you think maybe they run the table and they're going to be one of those teams for sure. And then you look at the rest of those one-loss teams and other teams that are unbeaten at this point and figure out who might be able to get there to face USF. So I think that's just going to be the way things unfold. It's so early in league play to kind of project how things are going to unfold, but I think we're going to know a little bit more about where all these teams stand after this weekend.
Yeah, is there any indication that the program, the team, are kind of rooting for any scenario over another? I think, like you said, the scenarios are kind of crazy right now, but I think, Memphis obviously helped North Texas' cause by losing to UAB, but are they just kind of focusing, 1 week at a time, that kind of thing?
Oh, sure. You always say, well, that's probably coaching behind the scenes. They're probably pulling one way or another, but I just don't really think that in this day and age with how many upsets there are and how even college football is. I just think they're really, really hyper focused on just that next game and making sure they just continue to advance the ball here a little bit towards getting into that championship game. And who knows what's going to happen. It's so much of it's out of your control if you're North Texas or any other team in the league. You just got to take care of what you can take care of and hope that when it all boils down in the end, that you're going to end up with an opportunity in the conference title game.
Yeah. Well, Brett Vito of the Denton-Record Chronicle, beat writer, columnist, winner of various awards. Thanks for being on the show. We'll have you on again next week, probably, if we can get a hold of you. Good luck finding some accommodation there in Charlotte.
We'll go find somewhere to stay, man. Yeah, well, give me a shot anytime I can jump on.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're here with Justin Na, NT Daily editor, Mean Green 24/7 publisher. How you doing on this fine Thursday evening?
I'm great, Adam. I haven't seen you, but the first and only time I've seen you, we were at the bowl game where obviously Drew Messemaker broke out.
Yes.
And look where we are now, right?
Yeah.
That's the last time we've talked, though.
Yeah, it's we're all basking in the glow of the wonder kid that is Drew Messemaker. Now we're talking North Texas 6-1. They play Charlotte. You talk to the the team, and you're there regularly. What should we know about the game or about the team this week?
Yeah, on the surface level, it doesn't look like a very competitive matchup, right? I think they just lost by a pretty big margin, by like 51-14 or so to Temple, or 49-14 at their house. And I think you kind of naturally expected that kind of result that they had like against South Florida, right? They also lost in pretty big fashion to South Florida. But losing to Temple in that big of a margin, I don't think speaks a lot of confidence in this Charlotte team. They're also winless in conference play at 0-4, and they have one win on the season against an FCS team. The message from the team, at least, right, is that we asked Coach Morris a bunch of questions about that contract and what's going on with all that. And his big message was that nothing is more important than beating Charlotte right now, right? And I think that's very true, right? You look around the America and you look at the path for North Texas to make the American Conference Championship. And at this point, they essentially have to win out, right? They have to win out and simultaneously Navy lose 2 games. And any team that's essentially ranked in that top 25, South Florida, hopefully, right? You may have to play South Florida. You get to have like one team that you're going to have to face. But to have that other spot, you need a lot of things to go your way. Tulane to lose 2 conference games. Memphis lost to UAB just now, which is crazy good for North Texas odds to make to that championship now. But you still need them to lose to another game. So, you just kind of need all the pieces to slowly click together. And so that all starts with Charlotte. If you lose to Charlotte, your chances to make that conference championship are much, much, much worse. But it seems very doubtful.
Yeah, back when North Texas was in Conference USA, I reached out to the league and I was like, "What are the tie-breaking scenarios?" It was coming down to it, and they were like, "Well, I'm sort of interpreting, but the response wasn't quick, and then they kind of just posted it. It seemed like it was sort of put together last minute, like, oh, we hadn't thought about this." I think the American has had scenarios like this previously, and I don't think they're going to really care too hard until it gets down to the wire. I think there's some tiebreakers that I think it's like head-to-head is a pretty classic tiebreaker. And so I feel like, at least for me, I was saying, I think it might be, for North Texas fans, that you root for USF. So that way they can just be clean and they're in the, with an undefeated record and everybody else is playing for number 2. You control your destiny a little bit against Navy because you play them. And then you're just kind of hoping for the worst for Tulane. And then, then this week, let USF beats Memphis and then you're kind of golden, right? So Memphis is out with a couple of losses, conference losses. You just kind of root for Tulane to stumble, and they play UTSA. UTSA is that little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde, and I guess at home they're good, and on the road they're terrible. So maybe you benefit that way. But I think it's too early to really care about that. I'm sure you got in the coach speak this week that Charlotte's the only thing matters, treating it 1-0, all that other stuff. Do you get the sense that they're trying approaching this any kind of differently or something, or is it more difficult to take it seriously because Charlotte's such a bad team?
I think this is what I'll say. I think this North Texas team was very highly motivated to beat UTSA in the margin that they did. Coach Morris kind of talked about it where after South Florida, actually I won't even begin with him. I'll begin with David Fisher. After that 63-36 loss to South Florida, David Fisher, who's the starting cornerback for North Texas, we talked to him this week, and he said that in the players only group chat, someone sent a message. I was like, we can let this game define us, or we can just move on, right? And so Jeff Traylor gave a lot of credit post game to Coach Morris and that team for being able to respond to that loss as well as they did, and that he said that they didn't respond well to beating Rice right the week prior, right? They didn't respond to success as well as they should have, and so I think that they clearly acutely know even after a big win, right? We were 5-0 heading into South Florida, but I think that kind of loss this early in the season just really, really reminds you just like how quickly everything can change, right? You can feel like you're on the top of the world. You make it to this big G5 game. We sell the stadium, right? There's a bunch of reporters in that press box. The national attention is on South Florida UNT, right? And you get to this opportunity and you squander it, unfortunately, and you quickly realize just how much you have to eliminate all the distractions and just play this football team, essentially. So I think they'll be focused for Charlotte. I think that they haven't played very well on the road so far, right? They went to overtime against Army and then overtime against Western Michigan. So they need to kind of, I think, help their road resume a little bit. Luckily, like North Texas plays, 8 or 9 home games this season. So they haven't had to have that many tests on the road. But it'd probably be, just for a confidence sake, a good point to beat Charlotte pretty handily on the road, so that when you get to that American Conference point, or if you get to the championship, which if you do, you'll probably have to play someone on the road. You at least have some experience of securing some victories over there. So I think they'll handle their business. I think they learned.
Is there any indication what it is about from any sense from Eric Morris or anything like that about what it is about going on the road that's different? Is it just the quality of team that they've been playing?
Honestly, I think there hasn't been any direct quotes. We got to speak to Drew after Western Michigan, right? So they come back and then we are interviewing him the week of whatever game was after that. And so we asked him about just how it was like. I mean, he's just such a young guy in terms of as a person, as a quarterback. I'm saying that, right? I'm saying that as a 20-year-old. I'm saying that this quarterback, the starting quarterback, is a young person, and he is, right. And so I just think you have a lot of inexperience across the board. I think you have some really great experienced players where you really need them, right? That offensive line is an incredibly veteran offensive line, right? We're talking about Tayonta having 5 years of college experience. Jim Tobadegwu, the tackle, also having 5 years of experience. Gabe Blair, right? I mean, these guys are handling protections. They're handling their jobs very, very well. And you need a lot of, I think, veteran experience in those key spots to make up for the fact that you have inexperience at that starting quarterback position. We have a true freshman in Caleb Hawkins, running out of control right now, and he's also a true freshman, right? And so I just think it's just a mix of experience and inexperience kind of showing up in unfortunate times, right? So that's probably what I would honestly attribute their poor performance on the road so far, at least.
Well, I always like to say bad teams, like everybody's on scholarship over there and that kind of stuff. But I think they give you more margin for error. I think to your point, I think, North Texas could still play poorly and win because Charlie
Yeah.
was not that good. But, UAB was a bad team. Every team seemingly is just one coaching fire away from turning into a juggernaut. So you never know. So what have you heard about Eric Morris's contract situation? I know it was reported that he basically has a new deal. I think the technicalities of it are the board delegated responsibility to the athletic department. Where is
Yeah,
it? Where does it officially stand, and what do you expect to happen?
absolutely. So from a technical standpoint, the Board of Regents, story that we did, that Haley Stump did, all shout out to Haley, and that story is just is a formality, right? They're just saying it's official. The athletic department may begin negotiating with Coach Morris. Coach Morris had signed an extension through 2029 earlier this year, back in February, that increased his annual salary from 900,000 to 950. 900,000 was his original salary that he signed in the contract, in the 5-year contract he signed back in 22. And so obviously, to retain Coach Morris, you're going to need a lot more than $950,000 nowadays. And so thus begins the negotiations. From an official, I'm still going to get through all the journalistically true, all reporting stuff. Coach Morris, we asked him about it. He said that he's going to let his agent handle it. He's going to have the horse blinders on. He's just focused on Charlotte, right? We got the coach speak. We got that information. But I understand, right? He's focused, and so do I think we'll be able to retain him? It depends. I think on a lot of different things. I think there's a lot of different scenarios we can then get into, right? In my opinion, if I am a lower FBS school, or I don't know if an FCS offer as much, I would actually be looking to try to poach Skylar Cassidy, right? I mean, the job and turnaround that he has had at every single stop that he's had, to me, is a proven enough resume where I'd want him to be a leader of a program. And so I don't know, Coach Cassidy. This is all speculation now. That was the conclusion of the journalistic reporting part. We're just now in speculation. And so I don't know Coach Cassidy's ambitions, but I know that he's super young and super proven this early into his coaching career. And so if I was one of those programs, I'd be looking to kind of add him, honestly. And I think if that happens, I think Coach Morris may be more willing to want to take one of those jobs that are possibly available to him. That's also the other half of it, right? One of those other jobs then need to be, pull the trigger, right? We're hearing interest. We're hearing that he's rumored, but out of all those schools, where does Coach Morris rank in their top 3 candidates, right? He needs to have a guarantee to go somewhere else. If we're talking about what are the chances of North Texas retaining him? So a lot of speculation and a lot of details to figure out. But yeah, that's the latest, at least on the contract side.
Yeah, that's good. Well, is it Tim Skipper, the UCLA coach? I think he said something along the lines of, the top of this profession is being a head coach. So I would suspect that Skylar Cassidy has designs, to be a head guy eventually. But I mean, I think anybody can be money whipped into anything. It's there's a certain point where you're like, hey, well, that's too much money for me to say maybe the job's I'm not ready for it. Well, how about extra zeros at the end of your check? They're like, you know what?
Yeah.
Maybe I am ready for it. I think that'll cushion the blow. Yeah, I mean, certainly North Texas, exists in a middle point. Obviously, we have more money than FCS programs, right? We got it's more money, more prestige than a coordinator position at Washington State. We've seen that. Or I guess North Carolina, because we got Seth Luttrell here too, but not enough to stave off that. And I think a healthy G5 program does get your coach poached, right? That's sort of the progression there. It's either poached or you get fired. So interesting that. Speaking of new coaches, you went to the Nightmare on Elm Street yesterday. Get to see Daniel Robinson. What are your impressions of the team? I mean, or of the crowd of the team? What was your reaction to it? It's basically a brand new team. It's like, hey, we got 12 new guys, a whole new coaching staff. Here we are, guys. So what are your impressions of that?
Yeah. So I'll start on the men's side because it's obviously, I think, just quicker for me to summarize. It's entirely new. Like, I cannot tell you a single thing about their basketball abilities based off of their 3-point shooting contest, right? Like they won one competition where they did the NBA All-Star stuff where you need 3 players to make a layup, a free throw, 3-pointer, half-court shot. So they won that one. I thought the event was great, right? I think I didn't actually end up going last year, but I talked to Coach Burton on the women's side afterwards, and he was talking about how year one they had some, light audio issues, TV issues. Like, they just had a couple issues that you're going to have when you throw an event for the first time. And so this year they really cleaned that stuff up. I was impressed. The court is bigger, which was kind of awesome from my perspective. And so, yeah, I thought it was a great event. Unfortunately, Adam, I don't think there's any major takeaways to understand. That'll probably have to wait till the exhibition that the men's side has this week, or actually next week. But I will say, I think the one takeaway I will say that I've had early in speaking with Daniel Robinson, the men's side coach, he mentioned, this is actually back at Media Day, where he mentioned that they kind of had a leadership council. Obviously, he has a son named Reese who's also on the team, and he was part of the growing leaders. And then there's an actual leadership council thing. I'm gonna have to ask a follow up about that to see how rigid these positions are. Yeah. What is given to you responsibility wise?
There's only 12, 15 guys. How much of a hierarchy can there be?
I think there's 4. I think there's 4 guys who are supposed to be doing an additional responsibility or something. Yeah. That's probably the one takeaway from a culture piece that I'll offer up. That I got some insight on. The women's side, I think Jason Burton has pretty much established himself as a pretty big contender in the American and in the women's side. Big news today was that the USF head coach on the women's side took a job with the Dallas Wings, which is crazy, but he was incredibly established. They knocked down North Texas last year. The American just got a little more, I think, theoretically competitive with the loss of him. And so I'm actually super excited to see what Burton can do. This is probably his first time having to rebuild the roster as much as he had to this past year with the loss of Tamisha Lampkin and the loss of a bunch of different players. And so I'm super curious to see what the women's side, the men's side, honestly, spin a wheel and see what result you end up on. I really couldn't tell you anything. I'll start taking my observations though next week now.
All right, yeah, that's what I expected. I mean, it's the first one is family friendly. Everybody come out, just get you in the mindset of thinking basketball. You're oh yeah, the NBA. I remember basketball, so stuff like that. I think that's what that's about. Ladies and gentlemen, Justin, where can we find you on these internets?
Yeah, thank you very much. Justin Nah Sports on X, Mean Green 24/7 on Instagram. Both those social platforms is where you can find all of my stuff. Obviously, Mean Green 24/7 is the website as well, where you can find the work I'm currently on. I'll also shout the North Texas Daily, we're the student paper here. I think people have had conflicting opinions on the Daily, just depending on who's in charge of it at the time. But I think I'm really proud of the work that we've done this year. Haley Stum is obviously the first name I have to rattle off. She's an actual incredible professional, honestly. And so she's elevated, I think, our content to a whole different level. Find her stuff's all over the NT Daily. So is a bunch of other stuff. Ian Pfaffenberger, another shout out. He's also producing great stuff on our podcast as well. So a lot of shout outs there. Sorry, Adam.
Yeah. I will say I did try to get Haley on, but there was a conflict. There was a scheduling conflict, so we had to settle for Justin. I'm kidding. No.
Settle.
No, we're trying to fit all you guys in it, but like I said, we're trying to do this regularly. So we'll see you again. It's goodbye for now. Thanks for joining the show.
Absolutely.
Chicken with journalists.
Record here.
Recording in progress.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a Mean Green Nation podcast. Welcome to it. As you can see, we have a guest, and do I have this right, Mr. Hank Dickenson? You said you'd like to be called the Great Hank Dickenson. Is that what it is?
No, I tried
Well,
to refute that
I
actually
must have missed that
pregame.
note. I must have missed that
Yeah.
note. As usual, Mr. Aldo Avina, how's life in gloomy Seattle?
Gloomy, a little cloudy, a little rainy, but not full rain.
Yeah, I think I remember when you decided to move there. You were like, I'm getting too tan. I need to get paler. I need to
I
be.
need that pallid complexion.
Yeah, I need to
Yeah.
look like I was locked in the closet the whole time. All right, so we sit here on a Thursday night. I'm drinking iced coffee. As the last time I was drinking a beer. That was a good time because we blew out. I say we because I graduated from there. The University of Texas San Antonio, right? The North Texas Mean Green dominated a rival at home, as we expected a little bit. At least I expected a little bit. Um, you know, the great Mr. Hank Dickenson. You were calling the game. What were your impressions of that from your perch in the booth, way up high, in lovely Datku Stadium?
Well, I think, a tale of third quarters, back-to-back weeks, right? I mean, a third quarter against South Florida that went the wrong way, predicated by turnovers, which create havoc. And we've done a really good job of that for the most of the year. And we were able to do the same. The other thing I was really pretty impressed with was a big rain came in pregame, and we had to, back off kickoff until 30 or 40 minutes later, whatever it was. But the student crowd, despite, losing to South Florida, I think a lot of kids were turned on to coming to DATCU for the first time. And I used to let that bother me. But you know what? If that's what it took to get in there the first time, kudos to Jared Mosley and the whole staff, because I think they woke some people up. And it was really a lot of fun to see the support. And I think, you've got to keep winning. There's no doubt. But if you want to look ahead, and I think people always do, the Navy game could be another really terrific crowd. And I think maybe North Texas, from a crowd perspective, is starting to turn a corner that we've all been waiting for a long time. So a lot of credit goes out to the football program, to Eric Morris, but also that athletic department. They've done a really good job taking advantage of a great season to really get people involved.
It's unfortunate that you say that because you're proving the message board is right, who have always said, why don't they advertise the game more? I haven't, I'm walking, but I think there's a little bit to that, right? I think it's primarily winning, right? You can get people in there, and then if it's a loss to Middle Tennessee or somebody, you're like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. If the game day experience is poor, all those other good things, like you only get, the one or two opportunities to impress somebody. So if you're there and you're like, wow, this is fun, even though we lost, right? USF, whatever it is, I think you set everybody up and say, you know what, that's fun. I'll do it again. I'll make time to do it again. I think winning is a primary thing, but yeah. Are you excited about the 11 o'clock Navy game? It seems early.
I mean, I think operationally, everybody that has worked in athletics loves the early kick.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of a disadvantage for Navy, being from the East Coast and having to travel. And yeah, I mean, to me, you play when you play. We all watch and consume whenever the games are on. So I think as a fan base, you got to get over that. If you want to be in a position to get on linear TV as much as we are, then you've got to be willing to accept that sometimes it'll be early, sometimes late. But again, I think as well as we're playing right now, for the players and the coaches, if they're ready to go on Friday, then let's kick early on Saturday. And let's go, get after it.
I like it. Anytime, any place. All right, big game this week. At least, like I said, because it's a conference game, right? It doesn't matter who you play or how good they are, or how good they're not. Charlotte's on the schedule, and they have scholarship players. The stats tell you, they basically scream at you, hey, we're a terrible team. They don't. I think somebody asked me this week in the chat, like, what do they do well? And I was like, well, they run a little bit, but even then, it's not. They don't run very well. They've played 3 quarterbacks this season. They made Temple look like an offensive juggernaut. And then I was watching their defense. I was like, wow, these guys are just running wide open. I think looking at that, yeah, I made the point this week that I feel like Eric Moore said the way to beat them is this week to say you got to treat it like they're Ohio State, because Charlotte's not going to really give you that motivation just by being a good team. The crowd's, I think, is going to be a little dead there, and I don't know. I mean, what are your impressions of the team, of the program? How have they been preparing? How have they been preparing for this game?
Well, tonight I walked past the team room where they were eating, and it was very quiet and very focused, which is, I think, a really good sign on the road. Um, I don't know. I feel like Eric's done a really good job getting kids ready for these games. And, we've been a part of struggling Mean Green teams that would have one or two good games in them. So you always have to be prepared. And on the road, I think one of the keys always is a quick start. Go ahead. If you're the better team, go ahead and make that statement early. Don't play with your food. Don't allow anything to get closer than it needs to. And North Texas has been very good at starting early. The biggest scoring quarter differential of the year is the first quarter. And even on the two road games, you had a 0-0 tie at the end of one at Western Michigan, but then pulled that out in overtime. Then you had a 21-7 win, or lead, rather, against Army. And then that one got interesting, but you win that one in overtime. So I think these kids understand now you're on the road, you're against a team that you feel like you're better than, you respect them, but boy, go ahead and put the pedal to the metal early. And is that Mestamaker taking advantage of a secondary that's been torched the last few weeks? Is it handing off to Hawkins, who has been the best freshman running back in the nation? I mean, you could argue you've got the best freshman quarterback and freshman running back in the nation. At least they're in the top 2 or 3 in that category. I think those two kids offensively are going to be key on how this starts. And then the defense has consistently turned teams over. They've done it in the red zone where we're around 95%. So, the thing you love about this team is complementary football. I know people get tired of that phrase, but boy, the Mean Green are playing it right now. As far as Charlotte goes, I mean, they're pretty good on special teams. They've got some really nice stats there, but they struggle everywhere else. And they also are very young. I think they've started 14 first-time players. They have a lot of injuries, so they're that injured animal you don't want to poke with a stick too hard because they still may have something left, and a good coach who's trying to rally them. But I get back to let's get out of that first quarter in really good shape, and then I think you dominate the tempo of the game.
Yeah, Aldo, I don't know about you, but like if anybody's talking about your team, they're like, well, the kicking game, you're like, okay, we're not going to have a good team.
I was going to mention that I remember of old North Texas teams in the 2010s, and that's like, the special teams is really good, and what that tells me is just it's not a great team, and I feel that, but being 2025 and being a fan of North Texas, same thing, pedal to the metal, get Mestamaker's confidence up, right? He's a gunslinger. He wants to stay in there. He's got some things to work on, especially on the deep ball. So let's test it out and let's get this to be a get right game in terms of the little nitpicky things, right? Because we've been great, 6-1. What is there to complain about? Let's focus on executing on the little things, and that's something the defense has been. We've talked about all season long that they've been doing those things, those little things to scoop up a fumble on that lateral, and even though they think the play's dead, they're going for it. Ripping the ball out before the running back is down. Those little things. Let's see that on offense as well, so we can see some execution down the field. If Hawkins can run for 100, let's see if he can run for 200. It's a 1-2 punch between Mestamaker and Hawkins, and let's continue that streak of being the number 1 scoring offense in the nation. One of the best freshman quarterbacks, the best freshman running backs. Let's keep that going.
Yeah, I always say it's about those third quarters, right? Like it always seems to me like that's really where the depth of the team is revealed. And like I think somebody said before, like, as a coach, saying like maybe you have a game plan and you sort of exhausted your game plan, whatever you've seen on film, and now you're kind of getting back to your basics, right? Like now it's like these are all the things and your habits that you've built up, through the season, and that's kind of where it's revealed. And like I said, it's all of the things, like how in shape are you? Because everybody can come out and sprint real hard in the first quarter, and then by the third quarter, you're like, I don't have anything left in me. I got jelly legs, and like all of everything is revealed in that second half. So I think you're right. Don't let Charlotte think they can be in the game. Take their will to win, out early. You're like, okay, it's gonna be another long day. We talked with Brandon Bird, Mason White-Barba earlier, this month now. Jeez, yeah. And they said they played on good teams and bad teams, and they said sometimes on those bad teams you get a little adversity, and then the team, not individual, but the team starts checking out. Like, okay, this is it. Right? well, it's going to get hard now. We don't have enough. We don't believe in ourselves, and we're done. If you give a team some hope, like you said, and they're like, you know what, maybe we could play harder. Maybe everybody plays a little bit, and then suddenly you're in a game. We saw that. Memphis and UAB just last week. I think it was like a 20-point line or something like that. UAB certainly thought that that they had a chance to win because they just had to get a stop, and that's all left. Don't let it be a coin flip. Don't let it be a possession. Don't let it be, let them score a touchdown when it's already 50 to nothing, and then you can go. All right, well, how do you like? How's are you in Charlotte right now? Is that what's going on?
Yeah. Yes, I'm in a luxurious hotel room in Charlotte right now.
He says it for all you just podcast listeners. He had the twinkle in his eye, like maybe it's not super luxurious. I don't know. I feel like they put the great Hank Dickenson at the nicest one they have there. Is that not it? Is that what's happening?
It's really funny because when we checked into this hotel, a couple of folks that were on the basketball trip when we played High Point came up to me and said, "Do you remember this hotel?" And I'm like, "No." I stayed in a lot of hotels over the years. And then I looked around and realized we had gotten beat by High Point, and Coach Hodge was not a happy camper, and we had some bus trouble. And by the time we got to this airport, which is near the Charlotte International Airport, it was like 2 or 3 in the morning. It was freezing outside, and the place was under massive construction. And before we could get our keys at 3 in the morning, we had to listen to Coach Hodge dress down the team for the loss to High Point. And I thought, yep, I do remember this hotel. But it's been fixed up. It's very nice. George Mistakis does not put the football team in a bad place. So it's a very nice room.
Okay, there you go. Good.
And I take all that back. But, yeah, it's funny to hear Aldo talk. And I remember the years when Toby Goen was our poster child. And that was when, your star player is your kicker. Things are not going well everywhere else. And then the other thing that strikes me is you talk to Y. Barbo and Brandon Bird. I think those two guys were leaders on one of the best locker rooms I've ever seen. That 2013 team that won the 2014 Heart of Dallas Bowl. Those guys were the heart and soul of a really, really good team that we watched develop. We probably won't see that again in the current, way that college football works. It's a constant turnover now, but those two represented guys that got tired of losing and found a way to win. And they took every game seriously that senior year. And that's why we had a really good season, 9-win season, bowl season. Could have probably won 11 that year. A couple close calls in that team, but great names from the past. Good guys.
Yeah, that coulda, woulda, shoulda is also why Mason Barber was a UTSA hater. So, I mean, he said, like, they took something from us.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, and, like Brandon Bird was saying, like, they took out that loss on Tulsa. It kind of felt bad for Tulsa. And he told a great – go back and listen to it, people that are just listening to this episode. He told a great story about how his friend was on the defense and was talking mess on that one. And, he ran for the – 200 yards, whatever it was on him, on his friend who was talking mess all week. And I was like, yeah,
he
you should.
Corrected you. He
Yeah.
gave you
He gave the exact number. I was like, I feel like on the anniversary of that day, you should text him that number. Like just text him the yardage that you got. That's certainly what I would do. But maybe I'm just not. I'm just a bad guy, I guess. Yeah. So speaking of like wins, I think anytime North Texas has like a good program, good start. And this team reminds me a ton of the 2018 team. But that 2018 team is not as beloved as the 2013 team because that, 13-14 team ended so well, right? Even then, it was such a heartbreaking loss to UTSA. At the end of the season, they would have went undefeated at home. They would have probably, I think they would have locked up a conference championship game. It would have been at Apogee at the time. And, all of that was foregone because of the loss, and they had to make up for it by playing in the bowl game. But it was such a good ending. I think everybody forgot about all of that. Like that hurt exists, but it's separate from that season. When you think of that team, you think, "Oh, it's so great." I remember being on the Cotton Bowl field and getting a grass stain and cut it out and saved it. But like the 2018 team, which I think was a very good team. I mean, you were talking about complementary football. That team could run the ball, pass the ball, very good defense. That team ended so badly. Right? It was a terrible bowl loss. I think Mason Fine was injured in that one. Just a lot of bad. There's a lot of coulda, woulda, shoulda in there. Lost to La Tech, lost to UAB after being up 21-10. I think it was on the road there in that one. do you feel what's your vibe? Like, you just taking the pulse of this team. How does this team compare to other North Texas teams that you've seen, good and bad?
Well, if you look back on that 13 team and the loss to UTSA, it really hurt at the time. They had a good quarterback, Souza. I can't remember his first name, Eric maybe, but last name Souza. He really did a great job of dissecting the Mean Green's defense, which is a really good defense led by Zach Orr, Marcus Trice, a lot of good defenders on there. So they came in here and did their job. Had we won that game, we would have hosted the conference championship game, and that weekend was the weekend of a huge blizzard ice storm in Denton. It would have been very hard to get anybody into the stadium. We actually hosted a couple of high school games over that weekend, and we were out there literally with shovels trying to get ice out of there just to get college or high school teams in. So you look at the kind of the silver lining, it ended up allowing North Texas to go to the Heart of Dallas Bowl and win in front of 30,000 plus Mean Green fans, arguably one of the best days ever. So, yeah, it was upsetting back then. But that season ended well. 18, unfortunately, like you said, when Mason pulled a hammy in that game, and the other quarterback is named Jordan Love, I don't even remember the second half of that game. I mean, it was over with when Mason went down, and he tried, he tried to get back in there, but that was disappointing because that team had such a great future and a couple stumbles, but still a great year and really, probably the high point of Seth Luttrell's era when you look back on it. But going to bowl games and winning is so much different than going to bowl games and losing. And I feel like this team's got a really good mission ahead of them. But they're also kids that don't worry about the past because they all came together this year. There's 68 new guys on this team. The fact that Eric's been able to put together such a solid team unity, I don't think they're worried about the past or the future. They're worried about today. And that's kind of why I think they're just ready to keep on going. USF's a really good team. Maybe you get a chance again. Who knows? But they learned from that loss. And I feel like that this is a team that, is not in a position to misstep. They're in a position to really keep stepping forward. And I hope that's not just the Pollyanna in me, but I've been around a lot of Mean Green teams, and I feel like this one is really prepared to do the right thing.
Yeah, and it's amazing to see that turnaround in the season. Like you said, there's that churn, and the worst case scenario is happening when it comes to NIL and keeping guys and then going off to bigger programs. What do you see in terms of that? How do you build that chemistry? How does that locker room come together so quickly so early in the season?
Well, I think it always starts with the head coach. I don't think there's any doubt if they're going to send the right message. But if you really look at the hires that Eric has made, we talked about really good freshman players on offense. We got to give Patrick Cobbs a lot of credit for what's going on with that running back room. And I think you could say that over the last almost decade. He's not only one of the best running backs in school history, he's a really good position coach. And then you look at Sean Brophy, who's done a really good job with this carousel of quarterbacks, and now you got Drew Mestemaker. So on that side of the ball, I mean, these kids are getting coached up really, really well. Defensively, Skylar Cassidy has done a phenomenal job. Statistically, it may not be the biggest improvement in D1, but Mean Green fans would tell you from what we had on defense to what we have now, it's a quantum leap. And so I look at the defense and all those assistant coaches. They've not only brought in kids that were on a number 22 ranked defense from a year ago at Sam Houston that have really helped, guys like Trey Fields, but look at the Wesloskis and the Witters, the guys that were here last year that you knew were good players but just maybe weren't always in position. Well, they're in position this year. We're one of the better tackling teams in the nation, and that was one of the areas we really struggled in for the last few years. So I go up and down. These are coaches that are really good at what they do. And then that turns the locker room and the culture into something that's pretty easy to manage, because when you're winning and you're doing the right things, there really is no second guessing. And I feel like, at 6-1, obviously there's a lot of momentum, and this is a game you got to be careful about. But I love the way the momentum is swinging right now. I just feel like you got the right parts, not only on the field, but in terms of coaching.
Yeah, I think you can see that, right? Like we've said on the show a few times that at least to my eyes, I'm just a guy, right? I've watched a lot of football, but I'm just a guy. That you can see that the defense in particular, looks like they pay attention to detail, right? And so without like comparing or pointing any names out or calling anybody out, I think last year there was a little bit of like coaching on Saturday. You know what I mean? Like we say, it's like you can scream and yell, but I'm like, who's that for, right? You know what I mean? Like I think the coaching happens during the week. Hey, this is the game plan. This is what we're gonna do. Let me correct some technique, and it reveals itself on Saturday. If you're kind of yelling and screaming on Saturday, I mean, again, what does that do? You're not going to coach anybody up in the game right now. It's not the time to communicate a change in technique or something like that. It's just really just, hey, let's remember some things. That's one thing I liked about Seth Luttrell, because he was not a screaming and yelling kind of coach, and he said something similar. Like, I mean, I think that's the good part. This team looks prepared. They look like they know the game plan, and then even when there's a bad run fit or something like that. I like the UTSA kid Henry ran for 72 yards. That was when I was saying in the chat. I think that was the first time all season I remember just bad run fits, like some guy just out of position. Usually, I mean, like you look at like Army just kind of out executed because like I said, they like to throw jabs, right? They're just better at throwing jabs, and North Texas is defending jabs because they run that option stuff all the time. It's just attention to detail. We talked about it, like playing all the way to the end, right? Fighting for the ball, punching the ball out, gang tackling. All these things are evidence of being well prepared and, locked in and dialed in. And I think that's great. Where you see that a little bit on offense, right? I don't think I don't think anybody was doubtful of Eric Morris's ability to coach up offense, right? Because, it was like 3 quarterbacks in 3 years and all of them done well. Varying levels, right? I mean, one, to get in good quarterbacks, Chandler Rogers, Chandler Morris, and Drew Messermaker, all good quarterbacks. But even you got Poffenberger in here. He's like, hey, I want to go play in that system, right? He's not playing right now or whatever. You got beat out by a better guy, at least for the team right now. But I think he could recognize quality at all the points in time. And I think maybe he got complimented there with Cassidy saying, all right, this is a good defender. This is going to be a guy that could be in my system. Because, again, you look at Sam Houston State's guys that they brought in. None of them were surefire NFL guys. There's a couple of 4 stars, 5 stars, right? The Samaje Burrell, I think he was recruited by Texas. Guys like that, but none of those guys are just like, all right, this guy's obviously world beater. You got a Warren Sapp right here. Obviously, he's going to change it. They're just good football players that you can see if you're a good defensive coach. And I think that's the thing that was missing. Talking about that, Eric Morris has had a great eye for quarterbacks, for offensive players. And I think Skylar Cassidy and his group and all his staff have brought that for the defense. And I'm excited, not to get too far ahead, I'm excited about potentially year 2 of Skylar Cassidy here, where he gets to say, look what we did, and, look what you can do. Hey, maybe you're a little bit better player. Maybe as a transfer guy, you guys can fit in here and do some of these things, and you have a higher floor, right? Because you're just maybe a little bit more talented. I'm excited about that prospect. But before we get into that, I think this team will take care of business against Charlotte because they have all of those that attention to detail, all of that, focus, and it's exciting. It's great to see. That's what I'll say.
Well, again, I think if you look at the 2 coordinators, and we've had Jordan Davis the whole time, and he's been kind of tied to Eric's hip, but he's done a really good job of keeping this offense dependable, through different leaders, different guys out there. And you see, I think it was a tweet you posted, where Chandler Morris's dad is talking about how much it meant while he was at North Texas to have that kind of mentorship. That speaks to how good the offensive unit is, just top to bottom. It's Eric, but it's Jordan, and it's all the way down. I mentioned Sean, just really, really good. And you've got an offensive line that's only given up 8 sacks, so they're keeping the pocket clean for a quarterback that has only thrown a handful of picks, and they all came in one game. And then defensively, Skylar is an interesting guy to watch. If you walked on the practice field, you wouldn't necessarily look at him and go, oh, there's your defensive coordinator for sure. He looks like he might be an offensive analyst. He's a young guy, but my goodness, he really knows how to put a defense together, and you can tell the kids want to play for him and they want to make adjustments. Henry had a great cutback on that very first carry. It's zone blocking, it's going left, and he cuts back right, and he's a gifted kid. But after that, they made the adjustments and they got it back in check. So, I mean, I think you feel like if you took away what a team really does well early, maybe you took on a little bit of damage, but there's a lot of football to go. That's a sign of being well prepared and the ability to just remain calm when something does blow up on you. And I like a team offensively or defensively, even special teams. Coach Svoboda doesn't let them, lurk after any kind of minimal failure. They've been very consistent. So that consistency is what I think we're finally seeing in year number 3. You can count on this team to overcome a couple of mistakes and get it right.
Yeah, when it comes to the defensive coordinator, I think we were, Adam and I have been talking about, like, this is like maybe the last hire Eric Morris has for the whole coaching staff to round it out, because consistently, like you've said, the offense has been up there, top 12, top 5, number 1 now in terms of the offensive and that potency. But that complementary side on the defensive side was not there, keeping them out of games, losing by a score in the last few seconds. And so we were, this is the hire that Eric really needs to get right. And I think he did. I think he did, because like you said, it was Lasky. I've complained about him before, like, why is he doing this? Why is he hitting that whole be patient, this and that in years past? And now he's got the confidence. He looks like he knows where to be. And this team is hitting hard, causing fumbles, being disruptive, and they're hitting hard because they're in the place that they need to be to make that hit. They're not chasing people from behind or trying to get back into the position. And that's awesome to see, this shift in culture and knowing that they know what they're doing. They know where they're supposed to be and adjusting to the ball. And sure, every game there's been a few mistakes here and there, but like you said, they supersede and they adjust and make sure that doesn't happen again, right? Henry had 2 carries that went for 100. I think that math was 113 yards. Yeah. And the other 10 carries were like 26 yards. So they took care of business. They didn't let that affect them, and they're staying in there. And that shows good resilience and good coaching. And so we're excited about that.
Yeah, I also think it's good that those things happen, because like they've had that to say, hey, look, you ain't perfect. You didn't pitch a shutout out there. Like UTSA moved the ball, and then UTSA also dropped some open passes that, it could have been a different game. So I think that it keeps everybody a little humble, right? You can't just walk around like you're the best player ever. It's like, yeah, he did run for 72 yards on you. And then he had a 41-yarder. And then that backup dude was scooting around the end there. So, we have some room for improvement here, guys. And then same thing with like Drew Mestemaker. He left some meat on the bone, so to speak. He missed Wyatt for a couple of them, right? He had that long touchdown, but Wyatt might have had 5 touchdowns in that game. And that's been a theme. He's missed Miles Coleman a couple times on some seam routes. And, there's room for improvement. It's exciting to be like, all right, our quarterback that's thrown for 17 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions, and one guy, he has room for improvement. And, like you said, without getting into NIL and all the other stuff, I'll just put a note here again and say the kid stayed, right, at the high school he was at, played safety, and waited his turn. So I'm a little bit more hopeful that he'll stay at North Texas. I think we as a fan base and all the other stuff should probably get together and, open the checkbook a little bit, maybe pass the collection bucket around a few times and then see if we can't make it worth his while. Give him, we can't pay him like Ohio State, but, that's fine. Maybe we can pay him like North Texas. And
yes, start doing that at the stadium.
Just go around. It's like, what is this? Like for the beer fund? No. This is the Drew Messemaker fund. So anyway, but like I'm saying is like, I think it's exciting to see that he's so young. He has so much room to grow, and he's so good right now. Like I said, like this, playing this way, if you had a junior quarterback playing like this, you're like, yeah, this is great. And it's because he's a senior guy or a junior guy, and he's experienced, and he knows how to play. This is a freshman, and he's like barely played any football. He's like, the joke is it's kind of like, hey, what's this? Let me just throw a touchdown real quick. You're like, what's this kid doing? So it very exciting times, and I try not to get too excited, or else I'm just gonna be bothering the neighbors and stuff like that. What do we think about this Charlotte game in terms of like Friday night on the road? It's a double whammy. Last time they went on Friday night, I think it was last year in San Antonio, and they lost on the road there. Some of that San Antonio UTSA being good at home. They're like a Jekyll and Hyde, team. They're only good in the dome and they're terrible on the road. So I mean, I don't know. It's interesting because it's a road game. They haven't been so great on the road, and then it's also interesting that it's a Friday night. The travel kind of throws everybody off a little bit. What are your thoughts on that, esteemed guest?
I mean, I think the good news is this is a team ready to play again, and so you bump it up by a day. Easy travel today. We flew out of Alliance and beautiful weather in Charlotte, so there's really no distractions. I'm sure most coaches would tell you they'd rather get going earlier on the game day than have to wait until the evening, but that is what that is. You're getting on TV and you're playing a Friday night game. For most of my career, I always felt like Friday night was biting the hand that feeds you, but that's really not the case anymore. It just isn't, because we're now in a transfer portal focus rather than a organic growth focus. So a lot of the high schools, obviously in Texas, play Thursday night. So it's really not that big a sacrilege. 10, 15 years ago, it was kind of a bad play, I think. But road games are difficult. Road games are different. And road games mean if you do allow a lot of people to get flat, you can come out flat. I don't anticipate that tomorrow night. We've already talked about the fast start. And here's the thing. I'm rarely in the locker room when the team comes into the locker room because we had a comfortable lead last game. I left with about 2 minutes left so I could go get a couple player interviews to play on our post-game show. So I actually was in the locker room when Coach Moore's came in, and they bring a chair out so he can stand up and be taller than the rest of the guys in the room. It's kind of funny, but there was an impending celebration, which ended up being really fun to watch. But the second he got up on that chair, the first thing he said was, "We've got a short week. We're going to play a team whose record is maybe not indicative of who they are. And before we have a lot of fun tonight, which we're going to have, I just want you guys to understand we are going to practice tomorrow." And I thought, what a great message right away to set the tone for what a lot of us would say is, boy, let's not look past Charlotte. He nipped it, immediately. As soon as he was done with that, a huge celebration, broke out, and he was sopping wet by the time he got on the radio with us. But I thought, that tells you what he's thinking walking off the field. He knows that it's not easy, and you do have to respect your opponent. We can go down the corridor of years and find plenty of games that we thought were very winnable on the road and turned out the wrong way. So I'm not worried about the coaching staff or the kids understanding the importance, and I think they love winning, and this is a chance to win, and it's on the road. So they've won twice on the road, took overtime both times. I think they'd like to get out of here before that happens so we can get back, but I'm not worried about the focus.
What do you think it is that has been that, because I think Army's good, and that sort of answers that question, but I thought they were a little flat to start out against Western Michigan, but that was also the first road game of the season. What were your impressions there? Like, why is it the road? Is it just, kind of roll the dice, I guess? It just so happened that they didn't, play super well or whatever it is.
Oddly enough, I can't speak to Western Michigan. I've missed 2 games in 31 years where I wasn't doing basketball at the same time. So I've missed a couple games where there was a head-to-head, but the only other 2 games I missed was when my oldest son was born in 1998 and when my oldest son got married, which was the Western Michigan weekend. So I was like you all. I had to listen on the radio and watch it.
I was at the game. See, I filled in. I knew. I was like, you know what? I feel like Hank's not going to be here for this one. Just, he's something about Kalamazoo. I think he's not allowed in there.
Yeah, no, the family didn't want me to leave to go to Kalamazoo. They wanted me to write checks that day. So it all worked out great. And very happy with that. But, as I watched it, really an entertaining game, just kind of a slow start. But, as long as you're making adjustments all day on the road, that's really all you can ask for. And that's exactly what happened against Western Michigan. And by the time the Mean Green kind of got it going, it was the right time to win on the road. This is a different team than Western Michigan. This is a Charlotte team that has their back against the wall. The scary thing about that is sometimes those are the teams that finally put one game together. They may not only have enough gas to put 1 or 2 games together, but they're 1-6. They haven't enjoyed victory except for, a game against a lower division team. And even that one, they gave up over 30 points. So they've got a lot to try to prove, and they're going to try to make sure that it's not a runaway early and that they can just be in the game. And if they're in the game, then you always know anything can happen.
Yeah, it's weird how that happened. I think it's great for everybody. All the coaches probably using UAB and UCLA as the example, but it's true. It's like those teams were very bad, and then it's a change in attitude, right? They changed the head guy, but really all that is just a change in habits. They maybe changed the practice week around a little bit. I think the UCLA coach Skipper was saying, we're just going to practice harder on Tuesday. When like nothing really changed. They didn't say, all right, we're going to run the option now. It's just like same plays. It's just a different guy calling the play, a different level of enthusiasm. So every team, I think, has that in them, right? They have the ability to just suddenly be great. And then I guess by the same token, every good team even has the ability to be terrible. So, like you said, you don't take anything for granted. But I think I like that North Texas, Eric Morris is North Texas, does a great job preparing, and they show up every week. I don't think they've been flat in any game. I think they coming out strong has been great to see. Like first quarter start. Obviously, the worst game that they played has been that USF game, but that was because that was a good team. And even then, the defense grabbed 3 turnovers in the first quarter, right? And I think everybody just wants something back. I don't know, Aldo, what are your impressions of Charlotte? Have you watched any of this? I don't know why you would subject yourself to watching Charlotte football. I mean, but
No, I haven't subjected myself to Charlotte football. I think from a bigger perspective, we're gonna have this conversation a lot as North Texas racks up wins, and as a fan and not a athletic person, I'm like, we're gonna win all the games forever, right? So as North Texas as North Texas racks up more wins, then we're gonna have the conversation about Rice, and we're gonna have that same conversation about Temple, who is scary, I think, in my opinion. And those are also more teams that can jump up and ruin that season, like UTSA did. So I think every game from now on will be that conversation, that opportunity. Are we going to lose that streak, right? Are we going from 6-1, 6-2, 7-1 to 7-2? Every conversation or every game from now on should be looked at as a threat, right? For the conference championship. Before it was playoff contention, and there's still a little bit of talk there, but North Texas controls its own destiny, and if it wants, the bowl game is checked off the list. That's done. The next target is the championship game if you really want it, and you got to focus as hard as you can to win the next, how many games is left? 4 or 5 games in order to get there. Forget what Memphis is doing. Forget what Navy is doing, unless they're playing us.
They play us next week, but yeah.
Right. But between now and then, or after that, forget what their record is. Control your own record, control your own destiny. And I think that's where the team's going to focus. Me as a fan, I want to beat everybody. I can talk ahead to championship contention or playoff contention and stuff, but I know that the team's got to focus on that.
Yeah, I think if you really wanted to put your money where your mouth is, you start booking college football playoff. Where are we going to play? Then we believe you, Aldo. So I think that's a great point that you're making. Also, like Temple, they have the Keeler guy. He was the Sam Houston State dude before. He was the one that hired Skylar Cassidy. I think in the preview, I think I write, and just everybody listen to this right now. I don't know if you've read the preview, but I wrote then, I was like, it's silly to predict, 3 months out what this game's going to be. But I was like, Temple's going to be good because I think they have a good coach. I don't know if they're going to be good this season, but they're going to be good. And you can see them, unfortunately for us, they're getting better, right? Every week they're putting it together. They believe a little harder. And, they handled business. My unofficial test for a good team is like, do you beat bad teams by big numbers? That tells you, that means that you're taking care of details. They'll give you a couple touchdowns, but are you taking all of those and then maybe one more, right? So then they were up 49-7 before Charlotte scored. And again, it's like backups and nobody, not the starting lineup in there. So like they were handling business against Charlotte. If Temple can do that, and they can do that. They're going to give North Texas a challenge. They're not going to back down. They're going to make North Texas play for everything that's available. But again, that's in a few weeks. I don't know. I feel good about it. I think let's get I don't know. Can you do a prediction? You can do a prediction. We'll start with Aldo. We'll go down. You guys are lined up this way. Aldo, what is your prediction?
I don't know what I said preseason.
I like this bit where you don't remember any of it. I'm gonna find what you wrote.
We're gonna do 47. I think that's a prime number. 47 to 15. No, 47. Yeah, 15. I'll stick with
47-50. Okay. This guy's again. We learned one of these weeks here that Aldo's from Austin, so he's just a little kooky. You know, that's what it is.
Weird bits.
So I said in the preview, in the season preview, is going to be 40-20. That was my Hot Sports opinion, and then I said this one. I was like 52-3 because I think there's a Charlotte's very vulnerable, and I think a good team can score 50 points easily. This team averages 45 a game, you know, and I think 50 is on the table. They've scored 53 times this year. I think you can get 50 again, and that to me would be evidence of a team taking this game seriously, right? But I think it's about the details, right? You can't go score 50 points in one play. You got to score, right? You got to execute. Take the yards available to you. Block this guy. Get this first down. Execute this play. So you can get 6 points, and then it rolls on that way, and I think that's how you get to the other way. And I don't think Charlotte has enough. They can run the ball a little bit, but they're trying to figure out who their quarterback really is. They're trying to figure out this, that, and the other. And I think when you're doing that against a locked-in defense, you make mistakes. You can't move the ball. You know, I think a very good defense, and I think North Texas has designs on being a very good defense. You know, can shut the team out. So that's my prediction. HSO right here. You heard it here first. I say 52-3. That's my prediction.
Well, I'm not one for predictions, only because I don't want to jinx anything. I don't want Kirk just being mad because I was on a podcast. But I would say one thing about Eric Morris: if this game was to be in hand at some point in the second half, he's going to run the ball. He's going to be very respectful of the guy on the other side, which I think could impact what the real potential is. You know, if you look at it on paper, and Aldo was pretty close. I mean, you average 45 points a game. They average 17. It's going to be somewhere around that on paper. But if North Texas could do what they're capable of in the first half, I don't think you would see a lot of wild offense in the second half. I think the bigger thing would be for the defense to really say, we're on the road and we're not giving anything up. So I look for something more in the, I would say like 31-10 range. I think a building block for Charlotte would be, can we move the ball on this improved North Texas defense? And can we hang around for a while? But I don't know that Charlotte has enough to keep up with a team that is as deep as we suddenly are on both sides of the ball. And the nice thing would be if you could extend a lead, if you could, the number of young guys that might get some reps that could be really, really big, especially with the four game rule, you know, that I think is one of the few things the NCAA has done well of late, is to allow you to play four guys, play a kid 4 games and then still redshirt. But I don't see this getting way out of hand, only because I think we have a head coach with, a real sportsman-like background and understanding that he's got a guy across the way that's having to rebuild just like he had to. And so those guys really care for one another in the business. So I don't think it's going to get wild, but I do think North Texas can control this.
That's interesting that you say that, because I'm factoring that in. I think if North Texas wanted to score more than that, they could. But I think you can get 52 by just running the ball. Where, I mean, like some of that was like USF, where they were not throwing the ball deep against us. They were just running over and through some of the second units. But they scored 63 because they were just running through the middle. But they were just running through them. So, I mean, I think that's a good point. I don't disagree. I think that North Texas run game, I mean, what are you going to tell Caleb Hawkins not to truck a guy? I think that's just built into, I think some of it's just like, well, coach, I was just running. It was a dive into the middle, but, those guys just bounced off me. I didn't see them. I didn't feel them. The only thing that stopped me was the end zone.
and that's where my mind was too. Like halfway through the third quarter, if everything is going well and we're outscoring, we're just going to run the ball and get ready to go home and give some younger guys an opportunity to, are you reading the tackles? Are you following the zone right? Are you reading the field and testing those out and getting some film? And I mean, I don't know how all that works, but that's the hope, is we just start running the ball to go home around mid-third quarter. Yeah,
so I think your note brings up a question, because I thought about this during the game. Why were we throwing the ball, our freshman to freshman touchdown, against UTSA in, was it third, fourth quarter there? because I felt like that was a little egregious. I didn't hate it at all. I mean, I feel like against a rival, throw the ball kind of running up. And I was saying like, there needs to be more of that, but I feel like that was right on the line of a little bit disrespectful. Maybe you can say, well, we're just running the offense, it's backup quarterback, third string quarterback. Maybe I don't know. What were your thoughts and opinions on that particular toss?
I thought it was a beautiful throw from 5 stories high. I thought it was a really pretty throw, and I don't think it was trying to run the score up. I think it was, hey, I got young guys out here. We're going to try to run some plays, and he executed perfectly. If you go back and look at that, I don't know you could throw that ball any better.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, Maker probably looked at it and said, that's what I should have thrown on those posts to Wyatt the first 2 times. They were bound and determined to get Wyatt a post touchdown, which they did. But to me, the danger if you've got a superior team or you've worn a defense out is even if the reserves come in, they are trying to show their coaches what they can do. So they're not going in there with a mindset of, hey, I'm just going to kind of try to run the clock out. I want to break a tackle and score a touchdown. So, I mean, you see that mentality when the young guys get in, and that's the danger if you've got a runaway game and you are trying to kind of call the dogs off. Young guys are not really of that nature. They want to be starters and they want to move up on that depth chart. But, this game could also be much tighter than we think it's going to be because Charlotte is at home and Charlotte has a lot to prove. And I think, the reality for North Texas is we know what we are offensively. And so if we are going to pass the ball, we're going to spread the field, and that's going to be an opportunity for yards after the catch. And we've got guys that can do that. So if you're going to keep throwing the ball, the score could go crazy if it had to. But Charlotte's weaknesses on defense are pretty ecumenical. I mean, they have not stopped the pass and they have not stopped the run. So you got to pick your poison, and the Mean Green will do what they need to do up front. I love the offensive line. We've had 10 different variations, but they continue to produce. And so even if you're bringing in reserve offensive linemen, they're going to make their block. So I think you hope for a North Texas team that really puts some space in between and doesn't play with their food at all.
Yeah, I'd like to see plenty of backup quarterback play. Let's see a little bit more Tom Van Groot out there. He was out there and he was barking guy. I love that. I want to see the third string quarterback victory cigar. I think that's great. I will take issue with one thing you said. This is not a podcast. It's the Mean Green Nation podcast. And
Yep.
I think we're it's not just any old podcast. I think we're about done with this episode. I want to thank you again for joining us from your luxurious hotel. I'm sure all the attendants will carry you from your seat to their next location there. I'm sure that's how that works. Aldo, do you have anything you want to throw in at the end here?
I mean, you've been doing this for a while now, and you have things you go through in terms of preparation for each game. Is there one favorite thing you like to do in preparation for these games?
It's a good question. For years when I worked in the department, I was around these guys and the coaches a lot more, and we were in meetings to go over any number of things. So I got to know the crew a lot better than I do now. Really enjoy working with Eric Morris and the coaches I've gotten to kind of get some confidence and rapport with. But the first thing I do when I go to practice is I go straight to the trainers and I try to figure out where we really are. And they've been very, very good to me to let me know, what's going on. I think our training room does an impeccable job. We've been pretty much injury free, knock on wood, for anybody, major. And that's a good sign of the kids being in good shape and the training staff, doing a great job. But they're without giving away any inside info, they're always a good window to who the kids are that they like working with and who the kids are that really show up and put in the extra time. So that's a small part of what I do. The managers and the trainers, in my mind, are the backbone of college athletics. And they're the people that work the longest hours and are around the kids so much that I enjoy hearing what they have to say about the kids. And to a man and woman on both those staffs, they love this locker room. They like this team. And when you hear those people saying, that they really like what's going on, then I think you can feel good as a fan that you're getting a good product every week. And at 6-1, I think we can all feel pretty good about the product. I sure do. And it's been a lot of fun to be around this team. And I appreciate the podcast. I don't get invited on many because I got a face for radio. Last one I was on, somebody posted, "Boy, Hank's gotten old." And I'm like, "Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not getting any younger, guys. I'm not helping with this goatee, but I mean,
Yeah, I mean, even Aldo right now, he's like, "You've been doing this for a long time." Yeah, I see.
I was
heard that.
specifically
Yeah.
not mentioning any numbers.
He's like, "That's so
I said,
long." He's
"Oh,
just
wow."
like, yeah. Zach Babb was on the show a couple weeks ago, and he was telling us the time he had to like basically drive across the country to go cover the game. Like I guess they were like, "Yeah, you're not gonna be able to make it."
DC.
Yeah, I was wondering. I can't remember if we asked you a similar question. Do you have what is your craziest story covering a game? Did you have to do any midnight driving anywhere across the country?
Well, back in the days of traveling with George Dunham, whose nickname was Midnight, Captain Midnight. Yeah, we played Army. This is either 96 or 97. And that was before they had redone the press box at Mikey Stadium, which today is fantastic. But back then was very Fouts-esque. I mean, it was pretty spare. And it was a really cold day and everything was frozen. The windows were frozen. And they're like, we'll try to scrape them for you, but this is where your broadcast is. And we're like, we can't even see out the window. Is there any other opportunity? And they said, we can put you on the roof. There's a little bit of covering, but you're open air. And we're like, well, yeah, let's do that. So we did the Army game, coldest game I've ever done, open air at Mikey Stadium. And right after that, we had to leave, catch a flight, go to Chicago to open the basketball season at Iowa. So from Chicago to Iowa in the middle of the night, and it was a blizzard. And George drove the whole way. We went to Lou Malnati's in Chicago, got deep dish pizza. I might have bought some beer, and we made the ride. And I think we arrived in Iowa at like 4 a.m, and then broadcast the North Texas Iowa game the next day. That remains maybe the longest travel day ever. But there have been plenty of them.
I like Lou Malnati's in Chicago. I think maybe other people have like hotter sports. They're like, "Oh, you go to Chicago, you got to get." I'm like, whatever. I've been there. I like the Lou Malnati's. I don't love deep
Great deep dish.
Yeah, it's good. I'm not a big fan of deep dish, but like I've gone up there for like Lollapalooza a few times. And when you're very hungry at the end of the day, and like you buy whatever food they have at Lollapalooza, which costs like approximately $1,000. And they're like, "Well, here's a chip," I'm like, "Hello, okay, I guess I got to eat something." It's great to eat, a big, very hefty meal there. So the deep dish pizza, it really hits the spot when you're tired at the end of a long day. You had another question, Aldo?
No. I think good.
Okay. We'll save them. We'll save the questions for next time. Again, don't be a stranger. We'll invite you on more. Maybe we'll get you. I don't know. We'll get you a youthful mask or one of those pills that all the celebrities are taking, where they like that. I don't know if that's the thing. Like, I don't know. We got a legend here, folks. Do not disrespect the legend. The great Hank Dickenson with us on the Mean Green Nation podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening. You can subscribe in all the ways that anybody subscribes to anything. Like, smash the like button. Click the like button. That's what I do. I don't smash anything. I just click it. I got to pay for the mouse. I can't be smashing things. Do that kind of stuff. We appreciate the support. We're on the Substack. Subscribe on there. There's the free tier. There's the paid tier. We like the paid tier. Again, I do send Aldo a couple pennies every year. I was like, "Thanks for being on the show." It's the little 2 pennies to get there. That's how he affords new hats every week. You see that? Look at that. You got the Denton hat there. Look at that. Yeah, that's how he does. Yeah, that's how we fund it. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening. Go Mean Green.
Go Mean Green.
Recording stopped.